Kind of get that Back to the Future vibe. Actually, kind of like the DeLorean coming through. Yeah, you kind of get that vibe. Now, if we could only go back to the malls, like in Back to the Future 1985, mid-80s, late 80s, to what the malls actually were for us, for me especially, during that time, we're gonna look at the mall then to now and see everything, kind of a history of what we had then to what to expect from certain malls. Now, others malls are completely functional, like nothing's really changed, but here, huge difference. We'll walk through the mall, we'll go back in time and take a look at nostalgia for this week's Nostalgia Power. A Staples store, Boston store, out of business. Like the doors have been closed for a couple of years now, and it's just astonishing that, you know, years ago, I mean, this was the store where you're shopping. And I thought something was going to get moved in, there'd be another store, maybe somebody picks up the Boston store name, and we've seen that. We've seen that with a lot of brands like Wonder Bread, like And One, Starter, things we saw from the 80s and 90s that went away, went bankrupt, came back with another investor, but nothing with Boston store. Came across this picture online of Boston store in its glory day. I mean, you can see how much nicer the building looks, people shopping on the weekends, during the day, today being Thursday, right after work. This is what it would have looked like. Not closed and locked. Never noticed bars on these windows before. Take a look at this end over here. Back in the day, this is actually where Sears was. The mall has changed. Like, you still see the theming Brookfield Square, but it's just crazy on what was here for the longest time, like Boston store, other staple stores, and to what it actually merged to. I think the thing that's really kept this mall going are the restaurants and the entertainment district on this end. This is exactly where Sears once stood. Here's Sears in 2014, another picture I found online, which I have been to many a times, purchased a lot from Sears. Never thought a store like Sears would be gone, be erased from existence. This very shot was right here. And another fun fact of actually where we are geographically, see this kind of like retro, kind of a 70s look right here. Just past there are some apartments. That's where Toys R Us stood. That is the Toys R Us that I grew up at. Bought the Nintendo games, got my Power Glove. Heck, I even got the NES Classic. I think back in 2016, 2017 it came out. Waited in line right straight ahead. Those apartments. Boy, would I love to see Toys R Us still. I guess it's still a good sign that people are still going into the mall. I'm gonna head in by the entertainment district. I wanna show you something right when we get through. This is actually Sears. Like, you have the movie theater right here, the movie tavern. This whole hallway down to the end right there. You have bumper cars. And if you've been following the channel, we've been here before. We've talked numerous kind of visuals at this mall because it's a great place to go back in time to talk nostalgia. But this very hallway we're walking down right now was Sears. Oh, and you can get cotton candy at the mall now? See, this is the interesting thing, is there's a couple different things here that you would have never saw in the 80s. So, I mean, we lose some of those nostalgic stores, and trust me, I'm gonna point out some stores here and you're gonna be like, oh my gosh, I forgot all about them. But yeah, we can get cotton candy at the mall. If you walked in either that door or these doors right here, this is the Sears side of Brookfield Square. Actual image of the front of Sears walking in. It would have been right here. That sign would have been right over our heads, right in front of that movie tavern. No more. I mean, Sears kind of had a Kmart affiliation, with Kmart not being around either, but I mean, who would have thought? Come to this mall and not see a Sears anymore. You see this. But Spencer's has lasted. I mean, it's fun because we're gonna see some storefronts and you're not gonna believe a couple stores down what it actually was, and then the store next to that, and then the store across from there. But Spencer's still intact. Like, it's crazy that Spencer's has lasted all this time. Like, we can still shop nostalgia at Spencer's. Speaking nostalgia, just takes you right back to those days, mentioning Kmart department stores. Being a kid, mid 80s, early 80s, you would see these, you know, you pop the quarters in. Now that you're seeing them at the mall, like, there's some nostalgia here, there's some history, and then like total different concept. But we see stuff from the past, and then we see stores that were never here in the 80s, in the 90s, even the early 2000s. All these empty stores. There used to be a very famous toy store that was right over here, not Calendar Toys and Games, which looks like closed doors too, but at one time this was actually KB Toys. Some of the KB Toys flyers back in the day: Christmas in October, Game Boy $89, Ninja Turtles, look at that, $349, Micro Machines, the NES, $100. Did you have the Batman, the Joker from Batman '89, the Batmobile? I mean, this is crazy. The glowworm, like, just looking at some of these, it just took me right back. I even had that RoboCop. Remember, you could put those in there and make it look like there was smoke coming from his gun, those caps. We had it all. Look at the Ghostbusters. It was jam-packed. Like, look at this kid in here. That would have been me. Like, there was so much stuff crammed at KB Toys because it was in one of these smaller stores in the mall. Just look at here. You had Talking Pee-wee. I think I remember somebody getting Talking Pee-wee and Cherry from KB Toys. I mean, every mall had a KB Toys. And I'll be honest, I would take Toys R Us over KB Toys, but to come to the mall and still see this, I mean, it would have been something. It would have been something so unique to still stumble across a KB Toys at the mall. And the funny thing is, right next to KB Toys was Waldenbooks. Waldenbooks was always the place, if I went to the mall with my aunt, she'd be at Waldenbooks, I'd be at KB, trying to come up with some kind of a scheme to talk her in to picking me up an action figure. And I actually got some cool paperbacks from Waldenbooks. I mean, this is before the whole Barnes & Noble, which is actually in this mall. I forgot all about Waldenbooks until I started doing some research on some of the stores that were here at the mall. Yeah, it would have been right here. Now it's kind of like the outlet mall feel. You have a Waukesha sports cards, like the collectibles. Like, this would have never been here. Do you like that Phoenix Suns pennant? Would have never been here in the 80s and the 90s. You know, entire store closing. Like another, you know, Route 21. It's too bad. Because once this store moves out, I mean, what's going to be here? Is it just going to be another vacant open store? The writing was kind of on the wall for most stores when Victoria's Secret, like a staple at malls, went out of business, like closed the doors, and other stores that came in here were never to par with what Victoria's Secret had. I mean, just the size of this store alone, huge chunk of real estate at this mall. I mean, it kept going all the way down there. And they didn't have, I don't remember Victoria's Secret in the 80s, but I remember it in the 90s and the early 2000s. And yeah, it just turns into this. Who remembers Woolworths? Every mall had a Woolworths, and it was like a department store. Had just about everything. I'm trying to compare something, maybe like a Kohl's, like an early version of a Kohl's, because you could find just about anything. And I remember this being at this store, and you know, at the time, being in 5th grade, 6th grade, wasn't much longer after that. By the time I was a freshman in high school, I don't think this store existed anymore, but yeah, it was just like, who remembers Woolworths? With all the stores we've talked about, there's one that I miss the most, and this is like the Blockbuster Video vibe for me. Suncoast Motion Picture Company, I always call it Suncoast Video, was probably my favorite store to come to. The fact that when this store closed, I mean, right here, right at the end of Victoria's Secret, I mean, this was a huge deal. Like, every time you come to the mall, like, it's you'd have all your choices. You know, there was like the 5, the 6, the 7 places you go to. And, you know, every time you come to the mall, I'd always stop at Suncoast. I mean, think about going into a Suncoast now. I actually found out there was still one open in Ohio. Beaver Creek, Ohio, just outside of Cincinnati. I think it's worth the trip. Someday, in the very near future, I think we're gonna have to go there and check out the last remaining Suncoast Motion Picture Company. It's good to still see some of that nostalgia left, some Chicago Bulls, some Los Angeles Lakers. And even from Journeys, like, you still get that vibe, like you still get kind of a flashback from the past. But then, you know, it's just more vacant stores. Right here in the corner was a store called the Merry-Go-Round. And at the time, early 90s, Cross Colors clothing was big. And it was at this store only, right here, that you could get that. And like at the time, let's just say 91, you know, a pair of jeans were $66. It's just, your parents weren't gonna pay for that. So if you wanted a pair of Cross Colors, you had to come up with that money yourself. It's a lot of lawns to mow. Out of the 3 original Staples stores, JCPenney's, Sears, which all the way down that aisle over here, and then Boston store, which we started the video off with, you can still see the entrance from the inside. We'll get down there in a second. JCPenney's is all that remains. Still going pretty strong. 2 stories. They remodeled the mall early 2000s. Like, there was more of an 80s look in the inside of the mall. You kind of see it on the exterior. I think they have the Santa Claus display right here, the Easter Bunny, and you gotta wonder how much longer that kind of stuff goes on too, because, you know, how many stores are gonna be here a year from now? Because every time I come back here, something's gone. Like, think about it. There was a time when all these stores were open. There'd be so many people. It's Thursday night right now. There'd be so many people. They have mall walkers. That's it. Now, something we saw last time we were here was the VR roller coaster. Pretty cool to see. It reminds you of those boxes. Like, you go in the big rectangle box. They close the door. You see like 6, 8 kids, and then you do a ride in there. Actually, the first time that I saw the roller coaster, the Beast, from Kane's Island, was in one of these simulators. I guess now they call them VRs, but yeah, this is kind of the future here. You know, you put the goggles on. I mean, how much different has it changed? You just swipe your credit card and go on a roller coaster at the mall. And here's how that 80s style did look. I mean, before the remodel, this was Brookfield Square. Like, I remember this. You know, we'll go back to like 89, 90, 91. This is the mall I remember. And also Sam Goody. You know, the thing with Sam Goody was you'd always pay more for a CD at Sam Goody, but you could get the single. We talked about this at the exchange, the old CD exchange. There was something special about Sam Goody Camelot music. Yeah, you overpay at the mall. It's kind of like buying a soda at a movie theater. But there was just something about it. Now, Sam Goody, Suncoast were the same company. Best Buy bought them early 2000s. I want to say over like $685 million. Shortly after, Best Buy sells the rights to another company who filed Chapter 11 bankruptcy. So, kind of in a weird way, Best Buy kind of ended Suncoast Video and Sam Goody. I remember the first time I saw H&M. It was downtown Chicago, Michigan Avenue, the Magnificent Mile. My sister wanted to go check it out. I'd never heard of it before. Now it works its way out. I mean, it's been here for a while, but it works its way out to the suburbs of the greater Milwaukee area. And it wasn't this big. Like, it just keeps taking over real estate from previous stores. And the last store right here was Champs Sports. And at the time, in the 90s, like when the starter jackets were big, remember Champs had like, it was a big deal. Like Champs and Foot Locker, I mean, they were big time stores to go to. Being a kid, wanting your Air Jordans, these two were actually the size of Champs, and then it kind of downsized to the one, and now it's out of business. Like, now it's no longer here. I was convinced we'd still see Champs, but yeah, every time I come here, like H&M gets longer and longer. I'd pull up the most popular starter jacket of all time was obviously the Charlotte Hornets. I mean, when you get those jackets in the 90s, you got them at Champs. It was just nothing like a starter jacket. Still had some of those fake trees in the mall, like we saw a lot more of that late 80s, early 90s, and the renovation came. Still hanging around, but you see that 80s, 70s architecture on the Boston store side. You can still get in these doors, you just can't get in these doors. So we saw this from the outside, and now the inside of the no longer Boston store. And it's interesting that this still, actually I take that back, I didn't see the tape. So they taped this off, or no longer even to come through these doors. You gotta wonder if I guess you can still come through on this side, because this is where all the action is. All the restaurants are on this end of the building, on the other side. Wonder if there's gonna be actually something going on in the very near future that they're starting to already prep. Out of posterity, this might be the last time we'll get a look, being this close to the closed off doors at Boston store. It looks like something is gonna happen over here. Yeah, you'd walk in and you know, every store would be lit up. The last popular store, not this one, but the second one, was a Hallmark store. Actually the best Hallmark store I ever been to. They had so much cool stuff here. One of the things I regret the most for not picking up at this store was the Han Solo cell phone holder. Such a great scene in The Empire Strikes Back. You know, the big finale, Han Solo turned into graphite, passed him up in this very location. That's why I let FOMO get the best of me now. You know, when you miss out on stuff, now they're closed. When you see something, you're like, do I want it? Should I get it? Because if you pass on it, it may no longer ever be there again. Just like Champs. And days before the food court, they did have a couple different restaurants here. The food court was a renovation. It was an add-on to the existing Brookfield Square Mall. But right around the corner, down one of the sides, there were a couple places. There was a Wendy's, there was a pizza place, and there was a very famous arcade. One of the very first times that I ate at Wendy's was at the Brookfield Square Mall. It was right over here. There was a pizza place, and that was pretty much your only food option when you come to the mall. Otherwise you'd have to go to like a McDonald's somewhere. But they took all the restaurants out when they made the food court, which every mall is known for. But right here at the end where Barnes & Noble is, was one of the most famous arcade chains in malls. Yeah, Wendy's was right here. You had a pizza place and Aladdin's Castle. Those were the days. Like, being a teenager, every mall had an Aladdin's Castle. And it was just so cool to go. I mean, you felt like the big kid going inside of an Aladdin's Castle. I mean, just look at these old, could you imagine still walking up to that today? Oh, and check this out. You got Elvis live, 1969. But when the food court opened up, that was your go-to. That was your destination for every restaurant the mall had to offer. And you couldn't miss it. There were signs leading food court this way. At the end of this hallway, you'd have every choice. Everything imaginable was in this room. When this was added, I mean, I had an apartment that I lived in just about a mile or two away. Spent a lot of nights here eating dinner because you had so many different options. Lids was right here. Like, it was you come here, you eat, and you go to Lids and check out hats, and you know, now Lids is gone, along with every restaurant just about. There's 2 restaurants, 3, one down here at the end. Out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different options. Pizza place was right here. I mean, look at everything that they did here. You come here, meet up with people, lunch, dinner. If you're shopping with friends, like, hey, we'll meet up in the food court when you're done. There's nothing left. They're all gone. This whole area just sits idles. Even Cinnabon's no longer. And we no longer have Aladdin's Castle, but we have the Castle Cade. And the funny thing about the Castle Cade is I believe this is a chain also, that there are malls that have Castle Cades, and they're old Aladdin's Castle employees. So they started their own arcade chain of newer type games. They have the knowledge of having an arcade at a mall. And this is what we get. These are the games that you see at the mall nowadays, at the Castle Cade. And every time we come here, they do change them up, but you still see that relic from the past, that nostalgic arcade cabinet that you'd remember. And a pinball I've never seen before, Weird Al's Museum of Natural Hilarity. You get the playing field on here. Kind of a digital, newer look. So every time we come here, there is something new. There was a Ninja Turtles, that's no longer, but they have Weird Al. The Deadpool has stuck around. Also Cactus Canyon. First time seeing this. And I think the employees go back here, like the staff, the maintenance crew will come out that door and work on stuff, but it does change. It looks a little emptier than the last time we were here. There was some bigger arcades, but I guess when something comes in, something's got to go out. But it is good to see Galaga. This is huge. You see a lot of these big type Galaga Space Invaders at like Dave & Buster's, at resorts, and now malls. But the Castle Cade. Actually, this room was a GameStop. The GameStop that was at this mall. It seems small, just standing here. It's just how they do it, you know, how they line up a store to make it look bigger. But if you can see the theming, this was GameStop, now an arcade, and the closest thing we have to an Aladdin's castle, except it's the Castle Cade. A lot of candy and gumballs here. Like every aisle we went down had these in one spot. This is the future. Like, no more restaurants, but they have vending machines. And here's how it once looked. Like, you'd come here, there would be everything. It's exactly where we were standing in front of. And now, 3 restaurants. You know, it's sad. It's too bad. It's too bad for the employees. You know, how long are they going to be working here? Because when they had a food court, there was so many options, and now it's like a ghost town. There's just nothing going on over here. There's just space and mall walkers. And the Mona Lisa. You ever heard that song? Mona Lisa, Mona Lisa, I adore you. It's nothing, guys. Like, sorry for the singing, but you know, how often do you see a Mona Lisa? I think I'd take Waldenbooks over Barnes & Noble. I know Barnes & Noble is so big. There's so much to see, to get here. But there was just something about Waldenbooks, like KB Toys, like Suncoast. I mean, so much in here. It was easier to find. And it's just, you get these monopolies. And they just kind of take over the mall. There is good stuff, though, about Barnes & Noble, but I just miss the 80s and 90s. The whole vibe of going to the mall. And another good thing is we can get coffee here. Yeah, I went with the medium pike roast. Always get the pike roast at Starbucks. Yeah, vintage nostalgia at its best. That's gonna do it for today. When I almost missed the last chance sale, look at the ET. It gets better. Big Thunder Mountain. One of the best rides. Disneyland, Disney World, whichever one. Thanks for watching this week's episode of Nostalgia Power. We went back in time. We went to the mall, went over the glory days. We also have Nostalgia Power live streams every Thursday night featuring the bad guy Mike Worley, Jester Tester, and Zod Rider every Thursday night. I'll have a link in the description. I want to thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys next time. It's hot. There's a ton of mall walkers tonight. I suppose I'm a mall walker because, you know, I kind of walked around a couple of times. Another side entrance. You know, nothing really major on these ends. But back in the day, could have been a good store. Got a good coffee. Kind of late. After 5. I want to say 5:30. Get a coffee. But being Thursday, just doing a Nostalgia Power segment. We do have a Nostalgia Power live stream, and I guess I got to stay fueled up. Got a big show planned tonight. Thanks for watching. How did I miss this?